The news feed PM continues. We've heard from crime activists. We've heard from members of the community, citizens. We've heard from the former Commissioner of Police in the province of the Western Cape. We've also heard from political analysts. Well, tonight, let's take that conversation further. I'm joined by Chet Thomas, IRS forensic investigator, and Tebogo Mashilompane, president of the Organization for Forum for South Africa, ahead of the president's address tonight, following those explosive allegations made by KZN Provincial Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Chet, let me begin with you. From a forensic environment, President needs to do some clinical work here in terms of him getting to really the bottom of the truth of what needs to or what could have transpired in that particular environment, so that he can satisfy himself, indeed, on the allegations being made on both sides. Where does he begin?
Immediately. Good afternoon to you and to the viewers. It has to start immediately. We cannot let this drag on any longer. It's been a week that nobody's going to forget in this country's history. It's exactly a week since Mkhwanazi made those devastating claims. And we now need to see solid leadership from our president. We need to see him set up a judicial inquiry, not a commission of inquiry. There is a difference between the two. And it's important that he sets up a judicial inquiry, but not just into SAPS. It has to be into that entire criminal justice cluster, because it seems there's bad actors from various departments that are acting in collusion with one another, that's having devastating effects on the execution of criminal justice in South Africa.
That particular environment, very tricky to navigate. I mean, one would think already a week later, those who are involved could be trying to cover their tracks.
As we saw with some of the evidence that Mkhwanazi brought forward, we live in a digital age, and it's very difficult to hide digital evidence these days. Everything leaves some kind of digital fingerprint, whether it's an EFT, whether it's a cash send, whether it's a WhatsApp, whether it's an SMS, whether it's a phone call. So we rely very heavily these days on not just direct evidence from a witness that could be cross-examined, but also evidence that comes from digital sources.
Tebogo, from your point of view as citizens of South Africa, what is your expectation of how the president should handle this matter? Many largely siding with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, saying the Minister of Police must go. However, the president needs to balance, because allegations have been made on both sides.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thabo, and greetings to Chet and the viewers. Look, our position is very clear as FOSA. We are simply saying the president must act on behalf of the citizens. Whatever that is going to do, it must be in the best interest of the citizens. The citizens for many years have been complaining and saying, we have a problem here, the issue of corruption, the issue of crime. And then now when Mkhwanazi comes in, he's simply cementing what we've been complaining about as citizens, to say we are confronted with these two demons. And then Mkhwanazi confirms and say, indeed, as a policeman with experience, even for that matter, I'm a provincial commissioner. I've got evidence of corruption in the system, evidence of criminality in the system. So we are simply saying to you, Mr. President, you need to get rid of the rod, because there is no way that will continue in this fashion, because corruption is every day, crime is every day. And then we see that is growing legs every single day.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, for example, that you would have fought for very strongly is the protection of the informal trading environment, the closing of illegal spaza shops, for example, a matter that is not yet resolved if you look at it very closely. Do you think, I mean, part of the compromise of the South African police environment, judiciary, and other aspects which have been raised by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is the reason why this matter is not being dealt with adequately?
True. You mentioned the issue of spaza shops. We confronted that issue. We've written letters to both ministers, Stella Ndabeni, Minister of Copta, Mr. Thabisa. And then we also wrote to Mr. Mchunu with regard to the issue of Tebogo. To date, we haven't received any response from the Minister of Police. And then we tried to put out our arguments to the minister and even questions that he should answer, but he's been failing. And these are the problems that are facing the ordinary citizens. They're not facing these people on top. They're facing ordinary citizens, people who eat snacks and die, people who walk on the street and then they take your cell phone, they step to, they kill you. So these are the challenges that we've been facing. And then we've been saying, but Minister, what is your plan on these issues? So we as a forum, we realize that the minister does not have the capacity to deal with sophisticated matters, like the matter of Tebogo, for an example, because even today is doing the dark and dive. So obviously we can't expect such a minister. But at the same time, you are saying, Mkhwanazi said, I've got evidence here with me that links the minister to the corrupt people. So what type of a minister is that one who will have relations with people who are questionable? So as a forum that represents the ordinary citizens, we are saying we want to restore the image of SAPS. We want to restore the image of the judiciary at large. Yeah. But how do you do it? You must first clean up. You need to get rid of those who actually are seen to be doing nothing about such particular issues of solving those particular problems.
Chad, I had the privilege of talking, if you want to put it as a privilege, but at least had the opportunity to talk to the Deputy Police Commissioner, Shadrack Sibia, right? He says, I'm just a mere investigator. I don't have these powers that Mkhwanazi says that I have. I only carry out what I'm being told to do, either by the minister or by those who are above me. But he emphasized that I'm just an investigator, right? Mkhwanazi will tell you that he's also a police, he's also an investigator. My question is, who then polices the investigators? Who investigates the investigators?
It's a very challenging question, that because there are organizations and there is a framework that is in place to investigate. In Latin, there's singular, it's like who polices the police. When one looks at the various oversight organizations we have IPID, obviously, although IPID is exceptionally undercapacitated and not resourced correctly. They're there primarily for police officers. You have the Office of the DPCI Judge, something a lot of people don't really know about, and it houses a judge, it houses investigators, and it investigates members of the Hawks. You have the Inspector General of Intelligence, who needs to actually show some teeth, because over the years we've seen rogue units operating that haven't been properly held to account by this very important oversight mechanism, being the IGI. One thinks back to the rogue SSA that was involved in investigating their counterparts within other important departments, such as SARS. Then, of course, you've got the Police Portfolio Committee in Parliament that has an oversight capacity. So it's not like we have a shortage. We've also got the Chapter 9 organizations like the Office of the Public Protector and the soon-to-be established, we believe, Office of Anti-Corruption and Integrity. So all of these oversight organizations are there. The problem we see is that they suffer capacity and resource issues, and that leads us to scratch our heads and wonder, why do they have these constraints? Why are their budgets throttled? It's almost as if we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We have the framework, we have the oversight organizations, but they don't have sufficient manpower or resources to fulfill their mandate.
Just from that, I mean, you then begin to believe that the president really has got his task set out for him, because it's not as simple as removing the police minister. Yes, we could make the call, remove the police minister, but if these oversight institutions don't kick in proactively and do what they need to do, we will never get to the bottom of this.
No, of course not. We haven't had a commissioner complete their term of office in close on 30 years. That's unbelievable. There's been so much that has been cast upon the reputation of SAPS in a negative way over the last 2 to 3 decades, that this reckoning has been long in coming. And I'm glad that this outing is taking place. But like I mentioned at the outset of the insert, we can't just look at the police in isolation. We have to look at other elements of the criminal justice cluster and see where the problems are and who has this symbiotic relationship with bad actors. But we need change. We can't just move people from one portfolio to another. We can't have a purge but allow the rot to stay. We have to have a thorough deep clean. Like we see on the 1st of September when everybody spring cleans. That's what we need in the police service as well as in other divisions of the criminal justice system.
Tebogo, a thorough deep clean. One of the things we have seen, for example, in the appointment of the public protector, where the public is consulted. There's a broad public consultation as to who gets appointed there. We are now saying president reshuffle, but it's the prerogative of the president to reshuffle and who he puts there as a police minister, and whoever is appointed as a national police commissioner or provincial police commissioner. The public does not really have a say on who gets to those positions.
Yeah, but it might look like we don't have a say, but we do, because remember, we've got what we call a social contract with the government, meaning that we have entrusted our visions and our hopes in this government to run this country. But whenever they make mistakes, we need to come back and say, but we are stakeholders in this, and then we must caution the president and say, but we think now you are not doing us right. Or any minister to say what you're doing is wrong, because it is our duty as citizens, especially now that we also have organizations, civil organizations that are there as people who are watchdogs on behalf of the communities. Hence, we're raising such issues, because not everyone will raise such particular issues, but we do raise on behalf of the citizens, because we are also part of the constitution of this country. We are part of this country, and then we need to hold people accountable. And then where we see something, we need to expose it. We need to talk to the president. Whether the president agrees to what we are saying, it's another story. But at least we would have said to the president, these are the wrongs that are happening in the country. What are you doing with these particular things? Because we are the taxpayers of this country. Anyway, we pay the salary of you in the parliament. So now you can't just say we then have a choice. We have a choice and a say. We say now, the president, you need to deal with this matter, because it affects us as ordinary citizens. So we have a say. It might not be as visible as it's supposed to be, but constitutionally so, we have the right to speak and also caution the president. But at the same time, the president is the last person to take a decision in terms of appointing ministers and firing and hiring. It is his own constitutional mandate. But at the same time, we'll be saying, but the president, this person is a questionable character. What are you going to do? Take us into your confidence when dealing with this particular person. Are you keeping him? And then when you keep him, what are you going to do? Are you going to institute an investigation that will come up with a solution? Not investigations and inquiries that we have seen in the past, where billions of money have been paid for such particular things. And then end of the day, we are told we cannot implement these things, or these decisions of this are not binding. So those are not the stories that we want to hear at the moment. Because if the president fails to align with what the society is saying, he'll be calling for something that we all don't want to see.
Tebogo Mashilompane, appreciate your time. President of the Organization Forum for South Africa. Chat Thomas with the IRS forensic investigators, of course, ahead of the president's address later this evening. We'll be hearing more views here on the Newsfeed PM. Do stay with us. More news in a moment.